All right. I believe this means we are live. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, tech fans of all shapes and sorts and sizes and persuasions, welcome to another Monday morning tech chat show on the SGGQA podcast channel. I'm Juan Carlos Bagnell, aka SomeGadgetGuy, the SGG of this terribly named podcast series. But the Q&A, of course, stands for question and answer, as we like to make this an interactive conversation dealing in the top tech stories, the news of the week. But why I like to hold my show on a Monday gives us a little time to kind of read up on this news, sort of sort out our feelings, and follow up on stories as they evolve and change over time. We want to be a little bit better aware of what's going on in our tech lives than just whenever an outrage headline sweeps through Twitter, especially if your Twitter is compromised or hacked and you can't get to your Twitter for a short period of time. It's been a crazy week. We've got a ton, like a figuratively, literally metric ton of news to chew through. I'm seeing an amazing group of folks already streaming through this live chat. Q3 Becker, Hamak, Pakistan, Gary the Fireman, Charlie Spirit Song, Root Night 5, LFA Reviews. LFA beat me. I don't know when I'm going to be able to visit those LG Tone earbuds, and especially because I'm apparently the LG guy on the internet. You've got to go catch LFA's review of those LG earbuds because I don't have them yet. Heikki, Dave Burns, Ron, Matt Tyler, Gary the Fireman. Nobody wants to hack my Twitter. Like there's that little bit of like social media pride. Like I have a verified check mark, but I'm not a blue check mark, so I'm not that fancy. So on the one hand, it's like, hey, cool, I'm not on their radar. On the other, it's like, oh, I'm not popular enough for them to want to try and hack my account. So, yes, lots to cover. Well, first of all, just welcome. Good morning. I'm gonna be a little scattered. I'm just real foggy. I'm on cup of coffee number 2. And there was a whole conversation, floating through the Discord this morning, just like, hey, Juan, maybe just go do something else instead of the podcast. So I might be a little rambly and all over the place. This is fair warning, but I am going to try and hold this to a more reasonable podcast conversation. With so much news, we've got to kind of just tap through the sort of politics and news side of this, and then I want to get to the gadget block and spend a little time kind of talking through some of the more fun stuff out there. But yeah, I might not be in my sharpest form. On top of my voice kind of fuzzing out on me. So I hope you had a fantastic weekend. I hope you got to unplug and spend some time with family, or maybe you spent some time online with some friends. There were a number of amazing podcasts and live streams that went up this weekend, including Josh Vergara on the Across the Pond cast and Issa over on TK Bay's Saturday morning stream. So there was a lot of great content going out there. Case to kind of sidestep that, talking about the great content, let's talk about my content. I've already seen over-unders on Housekeeping. We're going to blow through Housekeeping because there's one sort of personal story of the last week that I want to spend a little time on, that I think is more important than, my normal rant and rail through the stuff that I make. But I still want to highlight this. And as always, we start off every podcast. All of the news links, all of the housekeeping links, everything that we're going to be talking about will be up on the show notes on SomeGadgetGuy.com. So Aditi Anil saying housekeeping in 6 minutes and 90 seconds. Okay. Yeah, let's get into some housekeeping. First up, this was just a fun little video to put together. LG Velvet desktop mode, looking at some of the refinements on a mid-ranger phone. And as far as I know, one of the only mid-ranger chipset phones that supports a proper refined desktop mode, not just the Android 10 desktop mode, but even on a phone that doesn't have the beefiest processor of the year, you can get some decent work done on as when you expand the screen and you have a good keyboard and mouse to use it with. Moving right along, I wrote this revisit of the Pixelbook Go, how the Pixelbook Go became our family computer. And of course, I lead it off with a really nerdy Star Trek rant, because that's what you need in your Pixel coverage. This was one of the most fun videos of the week. This is the thing that I was most excited to share this week. Of course, on my channel, it's not doing super hot because I don't do a whole bunch of in-depth camera review stuff anymore, but Peak Design sent over their travel tripod. This thing is amazing. I cannot I can't oversell it. This is maybe the happiest I've ever been reviewing an accessory. When you look at the manufacturer's claims to the actual performance of the device, Peak Design has maybe one of the most special offerings as an accessory that I've ever used. So that video, I really enjoyed, sort of cutting that together. And then just because I wanted to mess with the YouTube algorithm, and it's kind of working, the Tilted Nation Shadow RGB headphone stand. I'm always super happy when a thing is a thing, but then it's also another thing, and then it could also be another thing on top of that. So you want a place to hold your headphones and lift your mouse cable and add some desktop USB ports. It's a floor wax. It's a dessert topping. It's pretty fun. So you didn't know you needed RGBs on your headphone stand, but apparently you do. And then we also finally put this one out there. This was, this actually launched a little while ago, and then we had to kind of relaunch it. But we did a video at Newegg talking about some of the recent upgrades that we've made to the studio. And so I'm just going to relist this here in our show notes, but we went through and packed in a bunch of RTX supercards and updated our workstation. So if you want to get a handle on what Newegg Studios is putting together, there are some really solid videos out. And then we also recently did a series of videos on some of the new AMD XT CPUs. So you can check that out too. And lastly, I've been shifting up my strategy a little bit on some of the Patreon exclusive videos. The audio deep dive reviews, I'm making a bit more casual. So I'm not putting together as sort of an edited version. It's a more conversational stream, but with all the same information in the headphone graphs and the charts and the speaker comparisons. And so last week we put out the LG Velvet Audio Deep Dive No Quad DAC. Now, if this was a really interesting conversation. I mean, it was kind of a this has been a sensitive conversation to have because one of LG's selling points is a headphone jack and a quad DAC. So there you go. But the Velvet doesn't have the quad DAC. It just has a headphone jack. So we want to see what does that actually mean, comparable performance. And then I wanted to do something kind of fun. It was a little bit of an experiment, but on Sunday morning, I live streamed this review. So if you caught it when I live streamed it, then you got to watch one of my Patreon exclusive videos for free. I think we had about 30 people kind of chilling and in the live chat and talking about audio tech and geeking out on it. It was a great little experiment. So I'm looking to potentially do a few more of these as one-offs. I think I might want to go back to maybe one of my 2-year-old camera reviews and just kind of showcase here's where we were with an Honor View 20. Camera review. Just because it was kind of a fun little experiment. So be on the lookout for that. And that's all the housekeeping that's fit to housekeep. It was a really busy week. It got another busy week coming up. I'm thinking a number of articles are actually going to go written on SomeGadgetGuy.com. I woke up this morning and I have the Peak Design and I have the Tilted Nation headphone stand. And I really just enjoyed making some videos that kind of shake up the phone after phone after phone after phone commentary. I really don't like it when my channel gets too lopsided on only talking about smartphones. And of course, because that's a little outside of how YouTube categorizes my channel, I wake up, I log in, and immediately I'm greeted by the YouTube creator suite going, viewership's down, people aren't engaging, they're not watching this as much, we're dinging your channel. And it's like this like shame spiral that YouTube tries to put you in. You should be making more popular content. If you make more popular content, then people will watch your videos more. And you're like, that's sort of backwards. I understand like what people are searching for, but I have 117,000 subscribers, and you're actively telling me that you're not putting my video on their feeds because your algorithm doesn't know how to categorize me. So the problem isn't me. The people who subscribe to my videos have subscribed to my channel. You're standing in the way of that. And it's another sort of data point, like how YouTube is becoming more like Facebook. I'm just waiting for the day where like, well, if you pay us $10, then we'll let you have access to 10% more of the people who subscribe to your videos. And like, it makes me want to like turn my channel into like a cooking channel. Some gadget guy. Let me tell you about this new blender. So, oh man, it's good time. Some gadget eats. I mean, there is some foodie guy. I think I might go some foodie guy over some gadget eats. I mean, I need to keep the guy at the end, Dave Burns. That's what I need to. LFA reviews, air fryers. Oh man, I should totally start reviewing things like air fryers. Yeah, some kitchen tech guy. I could totally do this. So, here's the deal. Let me get this out of the way here. I'm gonna be very inelegant here because this situation. Sorry, this was an abrupt change of pace. We're moving on. Again, links, housekeeping, show notes, SomeGadgetGuy.com. And my transition here is abrupt and awkward, and I don't have a good way to segue into this news because this story messed me up more than it probably should have. But this last week, we lost someone in a very shockingly unexpected fashion, who was a shining example of the geek community. And just I don't really have the relationship with this individual to deserve to be this upset. And I know we have mutual friends who were much, much closer, but I'm of course sort of dancing around this. It's just difficult even saying his name. But Grant Imahara, of Mythbusters fame, but of so much more. That's what's so challenging when you meet an individual and you're really impressed by that individual is you get to know them a little and you understand just like, this is a human being. He's not a Mythbuster. He's Grant Imahara. Not to take anything away from the Mythbusters. I'm not cranky about that. It's just, you see a headline and a headline tries to sum up like an entire person's being, and it can't be done in a tweet. So I had the pleasure of working with Grant Imahara on a couple of small projects. So let me screen share this one photo, and I'm really not trying to latch on to celebrity, but I worked with him on a small web series called The Shelf Life, which was produced by a number of talented people, but a good friend of mine, Yuri Lowenthal, who's the voice of Spider-Man in the PS4 Spider-Man, and is an amazing voice actor, an accomplished performer, and I was the sound guy on this web series of talking action figures who drop F-bombs all the time. And for one of their cameos, they reached out, and Yuri was pals with Grant Imahara. And it was one of those, okay, it takes a lot. It takes a lot to get me kind of celebrity Twitter-pated or tongue-tied, I've done recording sessions with some of the most famous A-listers in the world. Like it's not just, is this person famous? There's a certain, I don't know, a certain respect. And so I walk into the green room and there's this dude. I mean, his back's to me and I can kind of see he's wearing this like Han Solo outfit. And like, oh, I guess we've got our extras for the scene that we're shooting today. And I walk up to introduce myself because I'm gonna have to like dig through his clothing. It's one of the funniest things about being a sound guy on a set like that is you get very intimate with performers. Like I am up in your face and digging through your clothing, and I've got to work with costuming, and it's like the best thing I can do is introduce myself and um and sort of, if they're professional, they understand like we're gonna be touching a lot. Um, and so I go up to introduce myself, and he turns around, and I had literally one of those, "Oh, you're you" kind of moments, and it's Grant Imahara. And so we did I believe it was a 2-day shoot with Grant, 2 locations, and he just couldn't have been kinder, funnier, more gracious. I mean, he's playing kind of this Han Solo-y knockoff swagger action figure, and he's just digging it. I mean, he's just eating it up, and he's having a good time, and we're all having a good time. And it was just really a joy. Professional, courteous, kind, but funny, just really funny. And we kind of bump into each other on a couple other social occasions, but shortly after that, or not too long after that, I was running sound on a Sphero web shoot. A bunch of influencers talking about how cool the Sphero is, and Grant Imahara rolls in, and he's one of these influencers who's going to talk about Sphero and going to try and popularize this little toy robot. And I mean, you can look up those videos; they're really, really old now. That's my sound work, by the way. If you watch those old Sphero videos, that's me with wireless labs and holding a boom mic. But Grant rolls in, and he like kind of looks over at me, gives me a thumbs up, like, again, just so gracious, and like recognizing me that I was a sound guy on some other thing that he had worked on, and I'm the sound guy here today. Hey, cool, we did some work together before. But the thing that I loved about that shoot, they had other influencers and other like tech personalities there, and everyone's kind of digging in and kind of playing around. I loved how Grant kind of bypassed the influencery side, the PR side of the Sphero team, and went right to one of the Sphero engineers and just starts in like, "Oh, what are you using for this type of radio?" Or, "Oh, is that kind of the actuator that's in here? Is there one that you can take apart? Like, can I see what's inside?" Like, it would have been so easy for someone like Grant Imahara of Mythbusters fame to just roll up and read a script and cash in a paycheck and, yeah, it's a robot, and I used to rebuild R2-D2 units. Ba-ba! But, like, he got in there and he was just so genuinely curious. Like, the miniaturization and how are you controlling it? And what's the software? What's the programming language? And, like, it was just so joyous. You know what I mean? We talk about personalities and authenticity. Authenticity is so important. And it was really special getting to see just how much he genuinely loved and how much he genuinely cared about this stuff. I was no great close friend of Grant Imahara. I will always I will always be proud of the fact that he recognized me on set. Sound guy. But I will forever cherish the experiences that I got to share with him. So that's my story. That's my Grant Imahara story. I got to take a sip of water. So, when anything like this happens, I just think it's the best opportunity to share good stories. So, hopefully that's a story that helps. All right. Let's knock out some news. and so we can get to the gadget block, and we can talk about some interesting stuff and some fun stuff. And then there are a couple things here I'll be trying to share in the live chat if folks want links for some of these stories. But sorry. Yes, I'll be sharing links for some of these stories, but I'm trying to find some lighter or some happier news. I'm trying not to let my podcast be the weekly Monday morning bummer podcast. Matt Tyler, no news is good news. End the show. Mic drop. And I did mic drop with my right hand while my mic is actually over here on my left side. But there are some interesting things that that I still feel we should be keeping our eyes on. But I also think that there's some interesting stuff just happening. And so there are a couple cranky rants coming too from some of my own experiences this last week talking about tech. But let's jump into some news. Here we got the news block, and we can just move through this really quickly. I want to send a kudos out to Metacritic. This is a story by way of /Gear. Metacritic restricts launch day game reviews to limit trolls. This is written up by Brittany A. Roston. Metacritic is the latest website to take steps to prevent review bombing, the practice of plastering a game, movie, or TV show with negative reviews as soon as it's released. These attacks are often politically motivated and intended to harm the production in an effort to prevent the creation of similar future works. In Metacritic's case, it's restricting early game reviews. So after an onslaught of sort of very angry and cranky commentary on The Last of Us 2, Metacritic is moving to a delayed review schedule. So let me get this out of the way here. A delayed review schedule. I think this is probably a smart thing. We've been seeing sort of the entire online review industry struggle with people weighing in on and commenting on things that they actually haven't watched, used, or experienced. Kyle Ruckles, FFS, we really should impose limits on how many accounts we can have on these social networks, use our phone for authentication. So many bot troll accounts out there, little responsibility. It is extremely difficult to wrap our brains around the social media industry. Like, again, that's a very cogent point, Kyle. It's anyone can go and make a bot farm. But the thing I actually like about some of the recent changes, because again, it's going to be a massive undertaking to try and restructure this, but you start to see Amazon. Are you a verified purchaser of the thing you're reviewing? I feel like there are tweaks to these types of algorithms and these types of metrics, institutions that we can at least try and refine some of this commentary. Metacritic is a problem because they don't actually sell anything, right? So they don't have the same type of built-in firewall for that Amazon might have. But I do like the idea of a time delay. I mean, again, look at like the number of products that you see, what was it? Like on Best Buy, you'd start seeing a phone in pre-release and it would already have like 200 reviews. And that's false. Like, what is Best Buy doing if they're allowing reviews up on pre-release devices? So those little steps that we can take to kind of encourage some change in commentary. It's just interesting when it's how this manifests. The Last of Us 2 had an early leak. My YouTube gaming side went crazy. It was not a good look for gamers. The dog pile that came from the Last of Us 2 narratives, sort of verifying a caricature of the modern day gamer. When, again, people hadn't played the game yet. I've just started it, and I don't know how deep I'm going to get into it because I don't know that I need to wallow through a sad, dark game right now, but I think it's already proving to be very effective at what it's claiming to be. I would give the game a good review for what it's trying to accomplish in terms of narrative and revenge story and making you feel the feels. I'm just not sure that's a roller coaster ride I need to be on right now. But Metacritic taking this step, I'm hoping that we see a bit more conversation and a bit more proactive attempts at trying to just kind of narrow in. It's not to say that people can't have opinions on things, like you don't need to own this phone to have an opinion on it, but don't you think the opinion you have from a distance on a product probably shouldn't be weighted as hard as someone who can verify that they've been actively using that product for a certain amount of time? I've got a story in the Gadget Block about the LG Velvet, and that was kind of one of the experiences that I had over the weekend trying to have conversations with dual screen phone owners. And it's like everyone coming out of the woodwork to talk about their opinions on it. And I would only say like 3 or 4 people actually owned the phone, owned a dual screen phone to comment on it with any type of firsthand experience. So, game reviews have been needing some sort of market correction. But the good news is the gaming is proving to be more popular than ever. This is from the US NPD video game side. I don't actually know what that stands for. From Matt Piscatella on Twitter, year-to-date tracked spending across video game hardware, software, accessories, and game cards reached $6.6 billion, an increase of 19% when compared to a year ago, almost 20% more than where we were last year. This is the highest total for the year-to-date period since $7 billion was achieved in 2010. So, I want to see real quick. Hardware coming in $1.6 billion. Whew. In addition, with almost $2 billion for accessories and game cards. And I'm assuming they mean like GPUs or video cards. But software, a $3 billion industry. And I have to believe that this is also going to get a small shot in the arm when our next-gen consoles launch. It should be a real interesting second half to this year. From Steve Threebecker, only 2 or 3 people own LGs, so according to TechTubers. And Sam, I am one of those 3 people. But yeah, so big numbers, big spending on gaming. I'm pretty I'm pretty confident that this whole work from home and school homeschooling trends are gonna. I don't think that the sales trends are going to continue. I mean, we saw a number of headlines out recently, kind of focusing in on this first half of the year, just how much money went into outfitting home offices and work from home situations. But again, it's just always so stark when you see, oh, by the way, when people are sheltering in place and they aren't going out as often as they would, we've got access to incredible forms of entertainment, and people spend money on that stuff. It's one of the ways that we're going to kind of help keep some parts of our economy working. Let me get this out of the way here. So, some good news in gaming. I like that. Here was another interesting story. This one wasn't on my radar, but I think it's an interesting peek at the behind-the-scenes machinations between different carriers here in the United States. You know, we have this illusion of competition because you have, AT&T and T-Mobile and Verizon. Oh, you've got choices, but not really. Like if you do business with one, you're kind of locked in to continuing to do business with one. But we don't always get those peeks behind the curtains. Like, how does a massive organization like Verizon relate to a massive organization like AT&T? And it's curious. This is coming from the Better Business Bureau blog, I guess. It's not the BBB, but this is sort of a press write-up on the state of advertising. And I think it's just a curious little examination from this press release. The National Advertising Division determined, the NAD, determined that in the context of two television commercials touting Verizon's rollout of 5G service in cities across the country, challenged by AT&T services, certain express and implied claims regarding the breadth of Verizon's 5G coverage and typical speeds potentially communicate a misleading message to consumers. So AT&T is challenging the claims made in Verizon 5G ads. It's kind of like Alien versus Predator, IMO. I'm not sure one company comes out looking real good here. AT&T being the company of fake 4G and fake 5GE is upset with the marketing claims made in a Verizon 5G commercial. I just want that to kind of sink in for a bit. AT&T's upset that Verizon might not be telling the truth about their 5Gs. Is hilarious. I'm sorry, that's really funny. But regardless, the major claims, these advertisements would sort of allude to its 5G service is widely available in cities across the country, and two, that its service is broadly and readily accessible in cities where it has been launched. So the long and short of it, I mean, they actually break down some of the comments made in those. Verizon's 5G network typically delivers speeds of, quote, almost 2 gigs. And you're like, okay, that's kind of true, but not really. I wanted to find where is... Verizon doesn't dispute that its current 5G service is limited. But we've got commercials where we talk about how you can get it from Denver to New York. Here's the last little bit that I wanted to quote from this article. In its advertiser statement, Verizon stated that it will comply with NAD's recommendations, even though it does not agree with all aspects of NAD's decision. Verizon further stated that it remains committed to the self-regulatory process and believes strongly in transparency of customer messaging. So the company that has like 5 different flavors of unlimited internet on your phone, And I still don't understand their fixation on millimeter wave instead of really trying to bolster their sub-6. But they are pulling these ads even though they don't really seem to think that there's anything wrong. I just think it's kind of silly, if there wasn't anything up with those ads, why pull them? You should just keep running them. Oh, Tech Lovin' Mama saying hey to everyone in the chat. Everyone say hey to Tech Lovin' Mama. She's fun. She's cool. I'm sorry. I'm just reading through the live chat right now, and we've got some pretty fun things. Sam 34. Pot. I'm Kettle. It's good times. No, it's I am glad that at least Verizon took kind of a step back. It's been one of the most disappointing aspects of this 5G rollout so far, is kind of conflating speed with generation and not properly sort of looking at what improvements 5G really brings to the carrier side. Looking at network congestion is actually really cool. I mean, if you made some ads about that instead of trying to impress everyone with, if I stand right under a tower and stand on one foot and I don't breathe, I can kind of get gigabit to my phone. That's not a sales point, Like if you can't really get that in a moving car, then it's not really real. Matt Tyler, 5G rollout in the UK has its brakes on and it's going backwards. Although, to be fair, Matt, you guys out in the UK had a whole bunch of towers torched. So, I could understand why maybe pumping the brakes a little bit maybe wasn't such a terrible idea. The nice thing about your networks, though, is that they'll be sort of better interoperable. Right now, here in the United States, if you get a Verizon 5G phone, it's not the same as another carrier's 5G phone. Benefited the doubt, but the gigs, we need the one with more GBs. So frustrating. In equally frustrating news, but at least there's some conclusion to this story. I don't really feel the conclusion is sufficient, as you will tell by my tone. But hey, you all remember when Apple was out there quietly slowing down your phones right around the time that you'd be looking at like a 2-year upgrade on a carrier? You know, hey, your phone's about 2 years old now, and now we're going to push software out to your phone to absolutely decimate performance. We're not telling you that we're doing that, but we're really concerned about the undersized battery that we put in your phone continuing to perform well now that your phone's getting a little older. We went through all this litigation, and they did the cheap battery replacement program. So I paid $30 to replace the battery in my iPhone SE, my original iPhone SE. I love my iPhone SE. That's still one of the best phones that Apple's ever made. We recently talked about some of the settlement process, all of the bits and pieces that went into how much money lawyers were going to get. And now we're looking at a proposed settlement of around $500 million. So that's really not much of a slap on the wrist, considering Apple probably profited substantially from a business practice that encouraged more phone upgrades than consumers really needed to do. And it sort of just set the stage for the entire industry that we sort of just accept that at around 18 months, our phones should perform like garbage when they really shouldn't. I just went back to my Note 4 and put in a new battery, and you're like, yeah, this phone with a little bit of software polish could still be a solid performer today. It makes me super frustrated. You know, the hardware, what goes into making a phone should be longer lived than it currently is. So, if you have, and also I'm really frustrated that they've kind of drawn the lines on how far back they're willing to pay out. But if you have an iPhone 6, 6S, SE, or iPhone 7 or 7 Plus, you are entitled to be a part of this class action lawsuit and a part of this litigation, and you will get yourself a tasty, tasty $25. So if you have an iPhone 6, 6 Plus, 6S, 6S Plus, SE, 7, or 7 Plus, go get that tasty cash. Unfortunately, if you were affected by Apple's battery and software strategy prior to that, 4S, 5S, nothing for you. That's what you get. I guess. Nothing. You get nothing. Kyle Ruggles, they're empowering you to get a better phone, giving you the nudge you need. Benefit of the doubt. Apple found $500 million in between the couch cushions. Yeah, $25. And it's funny, you know, that whole whopping $25, especially for people that likely bought $600 to $800 phones that they didn't need to buy, if Apple had just had better battery strategies there. You know, so I put in my paperwork. I have the iPhone SE, and I went through the operating system updates that supposedly throttled my phone. And that battery did degrade pretty quickly, considering how hard I used my original iPhone SE. But I spent $30 on a battery replacement, so I'm still out $5 on my iPhone SE after this settlement, even with the reduced price battery replacement program. You know, because what was that? It was like $33 after tax. I mean, come on. I don't even break even on a battery replacement on the iPhone SE. From Al's Bockley, 25. It's almost enough for a charger. And from Ronald Webster RC, how much did the lawyers make? Ooh, man. I'd be surprised. I know. So Gary the Fireman is saying at least 33%. Properly litigating against Apple, I'll be shocked. I'll be shocked if the lawyers' fees aren't equal to the amount of money that's actually paid out. So for every $25 I get, they get $25 too. Yeah, I'll be very. I mean, I don't think we'll ever get the full breakdown on what the lawyers get paid for this, but you know. Who claims the $25 if you have a used iPhone, the original owner or the current owner? So I had to put in my serial number, and I had to I had to look through, and it was because my iPhone SE is still on my Apple ID account. I think if you make the claim that you experienced the operating systems that slowed down. So we're talking you had to have had the phone in between iOS 9 and iOS 11. Someone who currently owns the phone, if they make that, they might technically be committing perjury. It's just doubtful whether or not a lot of people are going to claim the same phone. But I would also say, in good faith, you say, I had the phone on iOS 10. I'm the one who suffered through Apple's terrible battery strategy. That's reasonably what I feel people should do. So yes, that's the gig. Kyle Ruggles, seems fair. From Dave Burns, what happens if people don't claim the money? I mean, that's why we're seeing the sliding scale on the payment from $300 million to $500 million. We're not entirely sure exactly how much Apple's going to pay out because it really depends on how many people actually claim this stuff. But again, how much information has really been pushed out about this? I mean, let me screen share this. This is a standard class action lawsuit website, smartphoneperformancesettlement.com. There's not even any mention in the title link. Let me share this in the live chat so you folks can check it out too. Not even in the title link, which would help generate a bit more SEO and search worthiness. It doesn't even mention Apple or iPhone in the URL. This is going to be an incredibly quiet piece of class action lawsuitery unless people spread the word on it. I mean, we've seen a number of tech blogs talk about this stuff, and it's, if you're out there with your family and friends, we all know family members who had older iPhones that were probably affected by this. I have family members that I know bought new phones that they didn't need to buy. So it's up to us to kind of help spread the word and make sure people get their $25. And that's just it. Kyle Ruggles, because of the way that this class action lawsuit goes down, Kyle asks, is Apple sending people notices that they can claim their reward? No. Again, I don't think it's on Apple. I don't think there's any expectation or liability, like Apple not really claiming any fault. That's one of the frustrating things that went down about this class action lawsuit, is the way that they've settled it. I don't believe Apple has to disclose any malfeasance. Like they don't have to admit to any wrongdoing in the way that this specific class action went down. And so because of that, if there is any notice on apple.com, it's probably buried somewhere in a support page that I was not able to find. I went directly to the class action lawsuit website. I wasn't able to find a direct post or comment from apple.com. So again, it's up to us. And Dave Burns, a lot of larger press will not want to piss Apple off. I mean, again, I feel it's newsworthy, and you'll see a number of folks just sort of posting out a press release, or just a brief write-up. Oh, by the way, get your $25. But the reason why Apple is paying this money out is because this was a horribly anti-consumer business practice. We actually do need the larger editorialists to weigh in on stuff like this. As we face mountains of e-waste and we look at the human cost of making consumer electronics, and we see that consumers are trying, customers, the people who own these products and actually spend their money on them, are trying to own these devices for longer and longer. Average time of ownership is up around 28 months. People are trying to get 3 to 4 years out of their phones, and practices like this stand directly in the way of consumers trying to really get the most out of their money. At the same time, we see Microsoft and Apple and these companies very, very starkly standing in the way of legislation for right to repair. It's not a good look. But again, I mean, to Dave Burns' point, we're going to see some very casual, brief write-ups. Oh, get your $25. Ooh, $25. Isn't that great? You get free money from Apple. But they're not going to weigh in on, what did this mean? There was a reason why we went through all of this legislation, why we went through litigation. We need to talk about why. And I still don't feel Apple has ever had to face the actual repercussions of one of the ugliest anti-consumer business practices that the electronics world has ever seen. No good. No good at all. And Kyle Ruggles and Sam are in agreement. It's total BS. All right. Moving right along. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because I'm not a network security expert, but Digital Trends has a write-up that is kind of interesting. Actually, our next two stories, I'm going to kind of blitz through. Super important stories. And I'm reading up on them because I don't really know much about this industry. Actually, either side of the cybersecurity industries. But fascinating examinations of the current state of our infrastructure and social media. First, I have completely failed to ever finalize a deal for a sponsorship with a VPN company. I have engaged in conversations with a handful of VPN PR agencies, like looking to put ads or bumpers into some of my videos. And we always kind of break down at certain language, certain costs, and then the deal always seems to fall through. When I see stories like this, 7 VPN apps accused of exposing more than a terabyte of private data. This is by way of Digital Trends, written up by Shubham Agarwal. I don't know where to put the accent on Agarwal. A group of free VPN apps reportedly exposed a treasure trove of private data of millions of users. Discovered by VPN Mentor, a total of 7 VPN providers, all of which explicitly claim they did not record their users' activities, left more than a terabyte of browsing logs out in the open for anyone to access. And so the whole thing about a VPN, it's supposed to anonymize your traffic and allow you to kind of move through different portals and keep you a bit buffered. You aren't as directly identifiable. The issue is the accountability of who are you doing business with for that VPN service. These 7 companies were really all just one umbrella VPN provider that had different departments that went under different names. So Super VPN, Fast VPN, Flash VPN, all the same. Routing traffic through the same servers that were not properly protected, and then storing their users' behaviors in logs where they explicitly said that they weren't doing that, and then not safeguarding those servers and blaming the situation, the shelter-in-place situation that we're in, blaming that as, we were sheltering in place and we couldn't get to one of the servers to properly safeguard that it wasn't belching all of your information out on the internet. And I love this. Hold on, let me get back to same. A spokesperson for UFO VPN argued that the database didn't feature any personal information and that the situation prevented its staff from securing the server. The email addresses they added were of users who had sent them feedback and accounted for less than 1% of the entire data. Now, what other stories have we talked about? Like, say, how cell phone carriers used to sell off our data and claim that it was anonymized. Oh, we don't put your name on your behavior data, and then someone can just go and buy all of that data, sift through some records, and can very quickly sort of authenticate who a user might be based on their behavior. It does not matter if your behavior is just in a part of a bucket and they didn't staple your device name on it, right? You're totally safe. BS. They were able to start picking apart the movement and behavior of Secret Service members based on this anonymized data. Again, the people most responsible for guarding the movement and behavior of the president of the United States. You pay a couple $100 to a third party that's buying this data from a cell phone carrier, you're in like Flynn. So it makes me feel a little bit better that I've never properly landed a VPN sponsorship. I just don't trust VPN to deliver what VPN companies outright claim. I still feel like there's a benefit to that, especially when you're doing some traveling. There's a certain level of threat or risk, but you're in a foreign country and you don't know what Wi-Fi you're connected to or something like that, and you absolutely need to get some info from your bank. A situation like that makes perfect sense to me, where you'd want a special private tunnel that can kind of safeguard you a bit. I would never trust that connection is foolproof and is impenetrable. It's always going to be, does someone want your info bad enough? And if someone wants your info bad enough, they're going to find a way. They're going to find a way to get in. That's, again, it's all in the marketing. I have this big problem with, Verizon claiming 5G this, 5G that, and that's not really what 5G is. VPN services claiming, oh, well, we're going to keep you shrouded. You're going to be a shadow on the internet, and we're not going to store your behavior or track your searches. BS. It's so frustrating untangling the realities of these services from how they're presented and sold to consumers who are going to be far more vulnerable, or use a service like this and think that they can do more than they really can safely. It's not a good look. It's really not a good look. Matt Tyler, 12 million customers. It's okay. It was only 12,000 people's data, less than 1%. It's cool. You're one of the 12,000 people who sent in an email. Now they've got a direct target over someone using that service to untangle specific pieces of information like your banking info. Route 95. We don't let the thieves into your house. We just broke the front door lock. Oh, benefit of the doubt. Just go in incognito mode. That's all you need, right? Because the other thing that we have to spend just a minute talking about, and I am not qualified to comment on the specifics of the Twitter hack that happened this last week, but it was hilarious watching the internet scramble to make sense of what went down. I have to send a shout out to the New York Times. This write-up on the hackers responsible. I mean, again, these types of stories can fall into the dramatic. They can become histrionic, melodramatic. That's the word I'm looking for. This story, like you put up Matrix green numbers in the back of your news broadcast with someone wearing a hoodie and ooh, evil hackers. This story, hackers tell the story of the Twitter attack from the inside, breaking down some of the misconceptions about what happened and the security failings and the tools and the group of people that this started out as just sort of a Twitter bashing collective, people that were trying to collect very specific user screen names like @Y or @6. Like, this started out as a group of kids that were just fascinated with trying to collect the shortest Twitter handles that they could, and then gaining access to some of the behind the scenes mechanisms that makes Twitter run, and then being able to try and exploit that is again, it's just fascinating. I am nowhere near being competent enough to comment on black hat, gray hat, and white hat hacking. But this write-up from the New York Times does a very good job of sort of setting the stage for what this really looked like behind the scenes. And also, and like I said, dispelling some of the rumors and knee-jerk reactions. Like the folks who were out there almost immediately saying, oh, well, this is state-sponsored. This is China. This is Russia. And apparently, no. Apparently, it was just a bunch of kids. Like maybe late teens, early 20s. And they gained access to tools that allowed them to compromise a significant chunk of Twitter's security policy, and it's fascinating. And that it was also kind of fascinating that they weren't able to accomplish it in just one huge surge attack. It almost like it had to spread a bit as they sort of worked through these tools more significantly. Kyle Ruggles, they probably got all the DMs from those accounts. Can you imagine the information you'd have access to if you kind of slid through Elon Musk's DMs? Like I wonder, if you're a public figure with any kind of notoriety, how much might you be relying on Twitter as a means of communication? Twitter DMs have become a pretty primary text communication resource for me. I refuse to use Facebook for anything significant. Apologies to anyone who's watching this on Facebook right now. There's a reason why I'm probably not replying to any of your comments or messages or questions. It's really interesting untangling the psychology of how we communicate with other people. And I wonder, like, if you had access to Elon Musk's DMs, do you think there would be a lot of valuable information in there? Because I honestly don't know. I wonder how much he really communicates with other people through a service like that, or maybe just falls back on more traditional methods of communication like text messaging. It's so weird to think about. From Alice Bockley, kids are creative. They think out of the box, where an adult would say, Twitter, impossible. And nothing's impossible. Sam, Musk's DMs must be wild. Matt Tyler, Donald Trump's DMs hacked? Now that would be a story. See, and I would believe that President Trump probably is using DMs pretty heavy. Like, he's on Twitter so much that I think he would probably be one I would point to saying, yeah, absolutely. Gary the Fireman. Twitter DMs are also an insane repository of guys' junk. Yeah, actually, especially if it's a female of any notoriety, we probably don't want to slide into those DMs. So yeah, absolutely read through the story. And kudos, NYT. This was a great write-up, kind of putting it all together. I'm trying not to spoil some of the larger reveals just because I want you all to go and read it. But it's a great look inside. And again, it's always sort of important to not rush to conclusions when we're in the middle of a situation like the Twitter hacks. Again, I jumped into my on Twitter, and I jumped into my profile, and I maybe changed my password. I'm still operating with 2FA, but that might not have mattered. If I were a blue check mark, it might not have mattered how I was employing security on Twitter's platform. So that's all the news that we're going to cover this week. We've got to take a quick break here, chat up the subreddit. Every podcast has a subreddit. I completely failed this last week to celebrate my subreddit, but some subreddits are all about sort of collecting the clips or the news pieces that people are going to talk about. Some are just fan sites where you can hang out and be cool. My subreddit is trying to be a platform to help other content creators grow. A main part of my message in my reviews and in my tech commentary is competition. And that's not just for the products we review. Again, it's not just for cell phones. It's also for how we talk about cell phones. And if you follow the YouTube model, then it becomes an obnoxious echo chamber of only the most popular products get to be deserving of any type of recognition. And that's based more on a YouTuber's ad revenue than it is the actual product. It's not really a meritocracy when a couple companies can spend billions on advertising, and other companies don't even spend that much on their entire manufacturing portfolio. So reddit.com/r/glowing rectangles. It's a place to promote your own content. It's a place to share content you think deserves more attention. We're totally open and welcoming to larger creators, but a tentpole producer, someone with millions of subscribers on YouTube, doesn't need the same help in spreading their message as someone who's just starting out, especially with YouTube kind of penalizing anything that's not popular. Again, see my experiences this weekend talking about a tripod and a headphone stand, and YouTube not going with me on that in sharing those videos with the people who are subscribed to my channel. Reddit.com/r/glowing rectangles. These are the top stories of the week on the subreddit, and I win again. Okay, this is my subreddit, and I don't win that often. I'm not always even in the top 5 of my own subreddit, but LG Velvet desktop mode, better multitasking from SomeGadgetGuy, doofy guy in a doofy hat talking about a niche feature that no one really uses. I mean, who really cares about getting more functionality out of their phones, right? Am I right? Why would you care to get more bang out of your buck? This guy's so off the plot. That's not what average consumers want to do. Moving right along. Trent Marshall, Samsung Galaxy Buds Plus first impressions. A very thoughtful pose from Mr. Tech Rant, coming in at number 2. And I love these cases. Rhino Shield, the Rhino Shield case collection from Jabbertech. I don't think his cases are as cool as my Wiener Dog case. So Rhino Shield has a bunch of cases, and I did a video on the iPhone SE collection because it's also really exciting that all of these cases work on the iPhone 8 also. But Wiener Dog is the correct answer if you're looking at a Rhino Shield. I don't see how anyone could objectively use a different case because this one's the best. Because it's Wiener Dogs wearing sweaters. I mean, that's adorable. Anyway, Jabbertech rounding out our top 3 and running through the rest of the subreddit. We've got Issa Does Tech, how to clean a phone using UV light. We've got a Poetic Whiz. This is a this is a channel I've never seen before. 85 subscribers, and taking a look at iOS and iPadOS 14. There's some jerk in a hat talking about the Peak Design travel tripod. We've got Viper, the man about tech, commentary on the iPhone 12. We've got TK Bay in his live stream looking at Xiaomi. That was a really interesting video. Oh, I didn't upvote this. We've got Painfully Honest Tech, his review of the Razer Blade Pro 17, Mi Band review from Issa. We even have a video from Fandroid, Nick Gray's site. Nick Gray has been doing terrific work over at Fandroid, rebuilding the Fandroid community, and looking at the Moto G Fast. So we've got all kinds of different commentary, reviewers, critiques, and a very broad collection of products. That's the exciting thing about a subreddit like this, is just seeing Star Trek videos. You know, if you've ever seen Junk Ball is a great channel talking about Star Trek-y nerdy stuff. RAV-powered portable laptop batteries, camera conversations. It's always interesting to me when I look through my YouTube feed and I see sort of a very manicured and narrowly focused conversation about tech. And then I get to go over to my subreddit and there's an explosion of different conversations, different products, different creators. This has really been exciting to me watching this community grow because we're getting a lot more submissions. We're getting a lot more upvotes. Please continue participating, upvoting. And last week I totally failed because we broke 1,000 subscribers. And I tried to set up a live stream and that totally fell apart. I'm going to try and do a celebratory stream this Thursday. I think it's going to have to be Thursday night Pacific Daylight Time. We'll see if I can make it earlier than that. But I'm hoping to have my schedule sort of worked out to do a live stream on Thursday. But we are currently at 1,036 1,036 members on Glowing Rectangles. It's starting to pick up a little bit more steam. It's growing organically. It's not like I'm trying to boost these numbers artificially, but it's been really exciting watching this start to grow in earnest. Reddit.com/r/glowing rectangles. Support your local content creators. Find new stuff to watch. Don't get so bogged down on just like one or two tech channels just because they're popular. And I know when you go to subscribe to a YouTube channel, YouTube's going to be like, oh, well, you subscribe to this channel with 1,000 subscribers. Don't you also want to follow this creator with 10 million? Maybe you do, but you also, I feel like YouTube isn't reading the room on what it is that you're doing when you subscribe to that kind of stuff. Reddit.com/r/glowing rectangles. Go check it out. Participate, share content that you want to see supported, that you want to see get more attention, upvote. This could be a huge shot in the arm for someone just starting out, or good reinforcement for someone who might be struggling under the current YouTube algorithm. So, LFA reviews. I loves me some junk ball. Those junk ball videos are so much fun. All right. Get this out of the way here. And why don't we talk about some gadgets? Get into our tech block here. I got to shift. I want to start this off just as a warning, because I don't think we've got great information on it yet, but we should be keeping an eye on bad power. Bad power is an exploit that can cause your fast chargers to melt or set things on fire. Excuse me. There have been a number of stories out about this, but I got this from Catalan Simpanu from ZDNet. Bad power attack corrupts fast chargers to melt or set your device on fire. Basically, you pick up a piece of malware on like a phone, and then that malware will communicate with the controller built into a fast charger, and then it overloads the charger and causes either the charger or your phone to melt down or catch on fire. Here's what I don't completely understand. Bad power is attacking a variety of fast chargers. In this write-up, and what I'm still trying to read up on from the security researchers that are kind of covering this stuff, is this malware seems to exploit certain ways that we can update the firmware on a charger. And a number of chargers actually do have updatable firmware, but some of the chargers that are susceptible to this don't have the ability to update their firmware. So, certain chargers, you can proactively stop bad power by updating the firmware. They mentioned that they're testing around 234. They found 18 models that didn't have a way to update the firmware, and that those are also susceptible to bad power. So I'm not entirely sure exactly how this malware attacks. If you can stop bad power with a firmware update, but these chargers can't update their firmware, then what is it that bad power is doing to the chargers with non-updatable firmware that they can change how that charger functions? That I really hope that we get some more information on, because it could be real bad. For people out there surfing on some of the dirtier areas of the internet, you pick up a couple bugs and then you turn your charger into a heat source of some kind. LFA reviews, just posting fire emojis. Dave Burns 2, chargers needing firmware. Are we hitting a low point? So I want to say, for a couple years now, there is more compute power in a laptop charger than what we use to send astronauts to the moon originally. We take this stuff for granted. We really shouldn't. But you pull out a little charge brick or a laptop brick or a charger or power supply, and there is a lot of processing power that goes into managing the magic smoke, what might come out of your computer of some kind, and being able to manage that stuff on the fly is very sensitive, especially in an era of super fast charging devices. You know, we saw Oppo, SuperVOOC, and Did Xiaomi show off one recently? I can't remember. Anyway, once we get over like this 40-watt charging, we've got 120-watt charging coming down the pipe. It's getting silly. Oh, I see. So Dave Burns is saying it's amazing, but it's really mind-numbing how little control I feel I have over it as a computer. That's totally appropriate. Again, the thing what manages all the juice going to your laptop or phone. I feel we should have some ability to kind of like peek inside. Is it operating within spec? It'd be good to know. All right, moving right along. Just a bit of good news for our neighbors to the north up in Canada. You guys are going to be getting the LG Velvet. LG introduces new era of mobile elegance with the new LG Velvet 5G. Today, LG Electronics Canada announced the arrival of its visually stunning LG Velvet 5G on August 7, 2020. And when they launch on Canadian carriers, they're going to be... Oh, I don't have an image for it. But you're going to get a pair of the new LG Tone Free, so they're Bluetooth earbuds, and a $200 Visa gift card. And from what I've seen on pre-sale, pre-order for the Velvet, we're looking somewhere in the ballpark of around $800 Canadian, which we're kind of in the $600 territory, which vibes with what LG replied to me. So when you see people complaining about how much the LG Velvet is going to cost, it has been a little disappointing how few tech journalists or tech reviewers have bothered to ask LG. Because I asked LG, is the Velvet going to launch in the United States at around the exchange rate of what it launched at in South Korea? And they said no. So again, you can speculate on how much it's going to cost, but they flat out told me it's going to, depending on carrier, it's going to be what did they say? It could be over $100 cheaper than the exchange price if you look at the South Korean model. And I don't feel that's too expensive. It's such a frustrating aspect of this commentary to kind of poke around like, oh, well, the full MSRP of this phone's going to be like $750. And you're like, is it? Did you ask? Because if you ask LG, they have something different to say about it. Did you try? I don't feel a number of people tried because LG isn't worth trying for. No. But seriously, we're in the middle of this 5G transition. Stuff's getting real expensive out there. Immediately from having used, do I have my Velvet's right over here. I just knocked something off my table. From having used the Velvet all this time, and I'm kind of writing up not quite a full review because we don't have North American pricing just yet. I'll be curious to see. As soon as I put that video out, that's when LG's going to be like, and here it is, and this is how much it's going to cost. And I'm going to be like, oh, my video's incomplete now. This is going to be stellar competition for a Galaxy A71. It will immediately become a Note Lite competitor with an active pen or an active stylus. And if you want, you can add a case to make it a dual screen performer, which functions surprisingly well. And the refinements to the dual screen case are very welcome, very appreciated. I don't get the I need LG to be wrong somehow commentary. Like the Velvet doesn't seem to be wrong anywhere. Mr. English Dan, I get my Velvet tomorrow. Ooh, ooh. And you can get it easily on eBay now for 500 to 600 quid. It's that kind of commentary, right? We totally accept that there are going to be trade-in deals or price drops or sales on a popular phone. But then we only compare those cheaper prices against a less popular phone's full MSRP. If it's LG or OnePlus or a Google Pixel or any of these other companies, it doesn't matter that you too can find sales or BOGOs or anything special for a Pixel or for an LG. No, it's a $1,000 phone and no one should buy that. Instead, you should get a Galaxy S20. So here's the cranky part of this rant. I've been a little frustrated at people complaining, oh, it's such a monster. I mean, look how thick. look how thick the velvet is, because the only conceivable use for the velvet would be in the dual screen case, even though the case is an accessory, which makes it a part-time dual screen phone, and you can always take it out of the case to arrive at one of the slimmest phones ever. But oh, this is such a monster. I think that's bad tech commentary. If that is legit your point, I have to assume you're bad at tech. You don't really know what you're talking about. And that's okay. You can feel that way. But it's pretty clear that your feels lack context and any kind of verifiable data to help corroborate your feels. And again, like I was kind of mentioning at the beginning of this podcast, I put out a tweet and I just said, hey, people out there who own dual screen phones, what have your experiences been in, how thick these devices are as compared to, say, a rugged bumper case or a wallet case? Because again, I feel like this is a critique without context. This is too thick. Compared to what? Compared to a totally naked phone? Why would you compare a dual screen accessory case to a single screen totally naked phone? Cases provide enhanced functionality that complete the phone experience. Some people rock their phones without cases. That's totally fine. But they get no benefit from that. They don't get enhanced structural integrity or protection or water resistance. And a dual screen case is more like a wallet case. The entire phone is pretty much covered. There is total protection for the phone of the screen. The entire front face of your phone is covered when the case is closed, and it allows you to do silly gimmicky things like prop up a display. Like a wallet case, you can prop up your phone. You don't need to have a phone stand handy when you have a wallet case. That is additional functionality. And same thing, I mentioned a rugged case. And again, I had a whole bunch of stands coming out. Oh, well, you showed the velvet next to a UAG case. That's like the thickest case ever. UAG cases are far from the thickest rugged cases out there. I don't know where that comes from. But, fully closed, your velvet is going to be about the same thickness as a Pixel 4 XL in a UAG. A UAG case delivers enhanced ruggedizing protection for putting that case on. So what is it that we're complaining about when we talk about a thicker device? Because let's compare this against, say, something like a folding phone, a Galaxy Fold. We can see these cop-outs like, oh, well, yeah, I mean, like, this is way thinner than a Galaxy Fold, but, oh, it's so thick. Like, what are you doing? You have, let's look at the Velvet versus the Fold, the Galaxy Fold. We're going to talk about the Fold 2. We've got a blurry photo of that coming up, and we'll use this to segue. This phone has two larger 1080p displays at a higher resolution than the screen of the Galaxy Fold, is water resistant, properly water resistant. The phone itself is rated mil-spec 810G for drop and shock resistance. You can take it out of this case and have a regular single screen phone, or put it in this case and it's smaller in the pocket than a Galaxy Fold. Plus, it also has, I think, a better engineered lifestyle hinge where if you want to go single screen and keep it in the case, you can do that, where you can't do that on the Fold. As soon as you open the Fold, you're stuck with an awkward square mini tablet. There is no comparable LG experience until the Surface Duo launches. And when the Surface Duo launches, then we'll have a full-time dual screen wraparound hinge phone that we can compare. And that phone absolutely will be thinner than the dual screen case solution from LG. Now we'll have a good fight. Right now, nothing exists to fight what LG is doing. Literally nothing. So we've got to find reasons why LG's wrong so that we can slow progress and only talk about how another manufacturer will eventually be better than LG. So it's not worth buying anything right now. Don't buy anything right now because hopefully in 2 or 3 years, folding phones won't be, horrifically expensive and, super, super fragile. It might even happen with the Fold 2, but I doubt it. So it's been frustrating. Again, it's kind of like the privilege of owning a phone from a more popular manufacturer. I put out the call to dual screen owners, and so many people, well, you must really want my opinion on never having owned a dual screen phone. Let me tell you what I think about dual screen phones. You're irrelevant to that question. I asked dual screen phone owners what their experiences were in terms of how they use these products for being a little thicker. Someone else coming in to tell me how they're patting themselves on the back for not owning a dual screen phone. You don't matter. Kyle Ruggles, does LG still have friends? Well, not many in the tech review industry. Actually, they've been doing a little better. It's funny. The Velvet is a really pretty phone, so those initial reactions have been a lot more positive. This is such an interesting strategy. LG, if you look at a Velvet and you look at a V60, how similar these phones are. Almost the same screen, but you bend the screen to make this phone a little narrower and a little skinnier. Almost exactly the same bottom port arrangement. The frames are very, very similar. They're using the same 1080p OLED for both phones and both cases. So their manufacturing is way streamlined over what LG used to make for their phones. And yet the prettier corners and angles on the Velvet, well, that's a really pretty phone. But the rounder, more squared off edges on the V60, that phone's so plain and boring and dull. The differences here are so minute, like from phone to phone to phone, glass on glass sandwiches. Anyone now really talking up aesthetic and design as some type of decision-making deal breaker, you're completely off the plot. You are so off what consumers really care about. I don't know that you could find your way back. So yes, anyone complaining about dual screen cases free of the context of something like comparable solutions, I have to assume they're bad at tech. I have to assume that they don't really know what they're talking about. Dave Burns too. But I hate having a diverse list of options. How else will someone put me in a commercial? I mean, if I just keep praising one manufacturer, maybe they'll feature me on TV. It'll be great. Because what we're going to move on to now is this super blurry image of a Galaxy Z Fold 2. We've got Samsung Unpacked coming up soon. When is it? August 5th. So the folks over at Android Central, actually, this is the shout out I need to give. If you're really curious about dual screen phones from people reporting on usage, TK Bay really uses dual screen phones. Like the conversations TK and I have had about V60, when I tried to loan him out my G8X, I mean, there's an interest there. So he's really actively trying to use it. If you come across a dual screen video where they show the same tired, well, I put Google Maps into wide view and wouldn't you know it, there's a seam in the middle of the screen. How clumsy is that? I can't use both screens for Google Maps at the same time without there being a seam. If that's what you're seeing, that's someone who isn't really in earnest checking out some of the advantages of having a whole second screen. The whole multitasking argument is phenomenal. I can't tell you how spoiled I've been. Like, I was watching the Michael Jordan documentary on Netflix and playing games for a good chunk of the day yesterday. It is so silly. It's so silly. But it's also one of those things like, I know my wife and I know my daughter don't care about this documentary, and I don't think I can handle another episode of Odd Squad, and we're all in the home together. So I want to play a game, and I kind of want this documentary on in the background. And I had a brilliant experience doing both on a phone with amazing audio, thanks to the headphones that I could plug into it. So when you discount that kind of experience and really getting more out of it, oh, but folding phones will eventually be able to do all that better. Sure, maybe, but probably with a less durable frame. Sorry, I sidetracked myself again. I would highly recommend checking out the Windows Central coverage on the Microsoft Surface Duo, especially for some of the developer stuff that they've been working on. Because it's not just, can you staple two screens together? It's, what software are we really going to get to take advantage of two screens stapled together? And when we have a good software strategy for that, office, communication, medical, all of these industries get a bit more interesting when you can have panels or two full apps or split screen on one screen and have a full screen app on another screen. That's where this stuff gets really exciting. Oh, well, I was at a restaurant and I had the menu up on one screen and I was instant messaging on another. Cool. I guess if that's all you did to try out a dual screen phone, I'm not sure you're really looking at this experiment in earnest. I'm not sure you're really trying to dig into how a consumer might benefit from this setup, but that's just me. So, back to the story we were going to transition to. Here's this blurry image of the Galaxy Z Fold. What can we learn from this image? Well, first, it looks like we're going to be getting stereo speakers that look like they might be offset. Is that what I'm seeing? That this would be, what is that? That's the bottom left. And then there's just this flip over. Oh, no, okay. So it looks like both speakers are going to be on the left-hand side of the Z Fold 2. It looks like we're getting the domino camera module from the Note, which I think is hideous. I really don't like the look of that camera module. And it looks like the front display is going to be a real, actual, practical, and usable front display. So definitely some improvements here. And from the very top strip, what we can't see as well in this blurry photo, it doesn't look like the Z Fold is going to have a crazy, hideous offset notch, which was one of the dumbest and ugliest things about the original Fold, was just the huge offset cutout for the cameras, the front-facing cameras when the tablet was open. So here are still my issues with Samsung's strategy here. The Z Fold closes, protecting the internal flexible display. To me, that would still mean that we're dealing with a more fragile display surface than a traditional glass slab phone. This is also one of the less efficient ways to make some kind of expanding or foldable device. Because when your main display closes up like this, you need another display on top. So we have to have two screens on this phone. Because of the way that the rear of the phone houses this massive camera assembly, I have to believe that there's going to be a hole punch or some type of cutout or something for a selfie camera so that you can use video calling services or take a selfie when this is open. And that means there's probably also, we can kind of see right here, it's blurry, but I'm assuming that this little pixelated blob right here is a selfie camera on the outside screen too. Unless, I seriously doubt Samsung's not going to include some type of selfie camera here for the main tablet form factor. So that means you have to have a selfie camera on the outside if you want to go single screen. You're going to have a selfie camera on the inside, and you're going to have rear camera modules on the outside. And I just feel like this is a really inefficient and expensive way to replicate functionality across all of these different usage scenarios, where if folding phones were really getting to lifestyle durability, Like, you could really depend on a folding phone in the same way that you can just pick up a regular slab phone, throw it in a pocket, chuck it into the seat next to you when you're driving. It might survive for a couple months in my wife's purse. If we were really getting there, I would have to believe there's an easier way to wrap the screen around so that you can use the main cameras as your selfie cameras if you wanted to, and then expand on the functionality while minimizing how much repetitive, how many different pieces you have to duplicate so that you can anticipate someone's needs closed versus open versus taking a photo. This all feels just really clumsy. And you're married to that. like you don't, there's no alternate usage version of this where it's slimmer. Like, you can pop an LG out of a case and then you just have a regular phone. You're married to this concept. So when we look at something like the Surface Duo, and the Surface Duo seems to only have a selfie camera, that makes sense. Because on a Surface Duo, just like on an LG, you can open it and have this dual screen experience, or you can wrap the screen all the way around and have a single screen experience. And I bet you the Duo is going to be even more accessible for how you can flip screens. It's one of the things I actually do kind of wish we could do better on LG, is when this is closed, activating the second screen and using that instead of the main screen. So when you go to take a photo with your Surface, you go from here where it's a selfie shooter and you go like that. And now you're taking a photo of something else and the other screen just activates. You don't need to have 5 or 6 cameras on the phone just to flip your wrist. You see, selfie, you, selfie, you. That's really easy. But you can't do that if you're locked into a very narrow, this only opens flat or it only closes style of hinge. Which again means to me that I don't think this generation of folding phone is going to live up to those durability issues. It's going to be a phone that people are going to, again, people should be excited about a new device. And I get that. Supposedly this is going to be great progress and it's going to fix a ton of the issues from the original Fold. I still don't think it addresses some of the fundamental issues of how a folding phone operates in the real world. And it's going to be praised by people that are far more inclined to go off on these statement devices that they can spend more money on and that they're going to baby. You know, like, you're going to fundamentally handle a Z Fold 2 differently than a Galaxy S20. And then we got to talk about cases, because we get really concerned about the thickness of cases, right? This right here, this is like a deal breaker, but the back of the Z Fold 2 is going to be glass. So how are we going to protect that without adding additional bulk? But that won't, but you know, that won't be criticized because it's Samsung. From Mr. English Jan, the main thing I dislike about foldables, you always have a gap from how the screen folds in on itself unless you fold outside, like a Huawei. The Huawei folding to the outside, where you don't have to replicate and duplicate all of this stuff, seems to handle that better. What I'm kind of curious, so I don't know what you folks think. This is a terrible pre-render, super blurry image, but it is kind of interesting to see. It looks almost like the Z Fold 2 is going to have 2 distinct screens with sort of a flexible connector. Because even in this super blurry, pixelated, leaked image, you can see how hard defined the crease is, but that the edges wrap almost like they're 2 distinct phones. You know, you see that curve into the seam right there, and then you can see the bottom part of the hinge kind of under that curve. I'll be curious. I'll be curious if they're going to start trying to mix materials. So instead of an all plastic screen, can you blend a harder display into a flexible hinge. Because that's another thing too, where I am so happy to be back on stylus enabled phones. Motorola putting one out there, the Stylo 6, both LG, the Velvet and the V60, where, oh, do I have my pen over here? Yeah, I've got like my Lenovo pen. You pick up a stylus and you start doodling around. You have pen touch controls, you have graphics capabilities, you've got palm rejection and pressure sensitivity. And I don't know, do I have it on this? Let me see if I've got my Autodesk. I don't know if I saved it. Oh yeah, I just started doodling. Oh, hold on. No, now I'm drawing on the screen. Hold on, I gotta turn down my screen brightness. You know, I took an old photo of our Pooch Bigelow, and I just started doodling one of his nap photos just because I could. I love having a stylus. No owners, I mean, they get this, they understand having this kind of hardware is super fun. And now I've got it on a phone that has 2 displays, and I can doodle and control and pen touch on both screens. It's really handy. I like it a lot. And I just don't have a lot of confidence in a plastic screened phone being able to do that well just yet. It's my big fear. You know, I game pretty heavy on these phones now. I turn one side into a control pad and I turn the other screen's playing the game. And the way I play twin stick shooters, I don't think a Fold would have survived. I mean, I'm really digging my thumbs in there when I'm sort of in the heat of the action. So, I don't know. I don't know. It's going to be kind of interesting because we did talk about Note 20. All these rumors out, you know, will the Note 20 be an Exynos only model? Will it have the Snapdragon 865 Plus? At the same time, we know they're going to be launching or disclosing the Z Fold 2. There could be as many as 5 or 6 new product announcements at this next Unpacked. I'll be curious to see, will the Fold become the proper Note replacement? And that could be a more interesting conversation longer term. Or do you make a compromise? Actually, you know what? This could be kind of interesting. What if, you just go with me here, we've got a Z Fold 2. I just got way more excited about the Z Fold 2. Hold on. Let's say we've got a Z Fold 2. And when you want to open this up into tablet mode, you've got this fragile tablet-y screen. But what if they sold an S Pen that only worked on the front glass display? So you have a Note when it's closed and a tablet when it's open. That could be kind of interesting. I would be a bit more forgiving if they actually addressed the fragility of their screen, saying, hey, when you want to, you can do this and you can have a normal Note experience, then you can flay it open and you can have this great mini tablet experience. That would move my needle. That would move my feelers a bit more on what they could do to make the Fold 2 a bit more exciting. Route Night 5. I can't see that consumers are not smart enough to not use the pen with the inner screen. But I mean, if it doesn't work, you only tap it once and go, oh, that's right, the pen doesn't work on the inside, and you go to the outside. That could be a thing. From Mr. English Jan, a more solid screen with a flexible hinge would also allow Note-like use. Does anyone have any kind of insight on material science like that? Because I'd be very interested to see, have we been working with plastics or with glass that could allow for that transition? Because that to me is the tricky part, is how do you move from one material that's more durable, more shatter resistant or crack resistant, to something that needs to fold? And I'm really trying to rack my brain. I don't know of any current product demos that tout something like that. There's almost always either you get the fragile side, even with the Z Flip. I mean, for all the noise they made, oh no, there's real glass on the Z Flip. Oh, it's yeah. And it's like so minutely thin that it just made the screen more expensive, but it didn't really make it much more durable. You would never want to attack that screen with a fine tip stylus. No go. No go at all. So again, it's so many. These are the questions that I hope we can see some answers to, because that's what would make me excited. If Samsung could start figuring out some of those challenges, it would rapidly improve my consideration of a folding phone. Matt Tyler, the Z Flip has a glass plastic hybrid. Sure, it does. That is technically accurate. Just like how the Galaxy S20 Plus has a hybrid zoom that is technically correct, which according to Futurama is the best kind of correct. It has functionally no difference in real world application. It does not change the usage, functionality, or durability to any significant degree. And it's just as easy to sort of damage that screen through like running a fingernail on it as the original Fold. So it's an important distinction that has zero impact. Dave Burns, Futurama has never steered anyone wrong. Matt Tyler, I was being sarcastic. Oh, Goran Petrovic, Samsung and Corning are working together on UTG glass for foldable phones. Okay, Corning Material Science. If any company's going to figure this out, Corning would be one that I would be... I mean, I will sit up and listen. I will sit up and pay attention to what Corning has to say for something like that. Again, if you haven't, a couple weeks back, actually more like a month back on this podcast, I had Jason Gurdon from TCL. And TCL, I mean, you know, they're making their own branded phones now. They were Alcatel and BlackBerry ODMs. The ODM behind Alcatel, BlackBerry, and Palm, the little mini Palm phone. He was super candid. It's a great conversation because like he just didn't care to play the PR game. It was like, hey, we've got these amazing concepts on foldable phones. The OLED actually isn't the hard part. Making a screen that warps and folds, not that hard. What you put it in is insanely difficult. I thought it was a great kind of insight on where we are with that kind of stuff. But if Corning were to get in the game and say, hey, here's a material that you can cover your foldable phone with and make it more durable and a bit more shatter resistant, it probably, I don't know that we'll ever really truly get to the same kind of scratch resistance. But even just that, you know, it's not gonna crack if you poke at it with a stylus would be such a huge perk. Oh, and Root Night 5, let's see the excitement for an LG rollable design. I mean, again, my criticisms of a folding phone compounded when you start looking at like sci-fi rolling scroll concepts. I understand why people think that looks cool, but what I really want, I'll have to point my ire at LG if they try to make a big play on this too. Because what I really want are better augmented reality, heads-up displays, and audio controls. I really wish we could get a phone to be smaller again and expand on the functionality with how it interoperates with other displays, other computing systems, glasses, and earbuds. There's so much of my day I don't need to have my hands and ears and eyes and fingers all focused on this one thing. Notification pops up and I want it to just pop up and then I want it to go away. I don't want to have to reference a device or expand on something. I want a little bug in my ear to say, hey, by the way, there's a thing. Do you want me to read it? And you're like, no. Or, oh, it's my mom? Yeah, read that for me. And then just get on with my day and be able to kind of flow through these distractions a bit more organically. And that's not going to happen if all we can think of is making phones bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger so that more and more screen occupy all of our senses. But that's the gig. Oof. As I bump my microphone and knock over my desk. I'm so into this. All right, I want to wrap this up. Last week we talked about Canon, the R5 and R6, insane monster cameras. It was hilarious this last week where Blackmagic apparently, I think, was feeling a little left out. You know, Sony made a bunch of buzz. The A7S3, is that the, yeah. The announcement for their new full frame is coming, I think, next week. It was July 28th. And Canon, bunch of buzz. Oh man, R series and mirrorless and Canon, and how exciting. And Blackmagic pulled a hold my beer moment. This is so outside the realm of consumer tech. I want one so bad. I present to you the Blackmagic Ursa Mini 12K at $9,995. We were talking 8K footage on Canons, and I'm sure Sony's probably going to be doing something with higher frame rates because I really want 4K at higher frame rates. This camera, the Ursa Mini, shoots 12K footage at 60 frames per second. The sensor is an 80 megapixel sensor with 14 stops of dynamic range. It just looks like such a monster spaceship of awesome. I was trying to find 8K footage at 110 frames per second and 4K footage at 220 frames per second. So here's my, like, what I want to do eventually with my channel. And I don't think it's going to happen right away. It's not going to happen anytime soon. But the next camera upgrade I really want to do, I'm curious as to how editorial will look if I could push to 120 frames per second. The stream on that is super problematic. Not a lot of people could stream 4K 120. But what I really want to show, I'm not interested in making the prettiest looking cinematic content. But I want to experiment with, if I'm making editorial, if I'm making a review, not a pretty commercial with gorgeous bokeh in the background, but I'm trying to show you the functionality of one of these devices, would there be an impact? Would 120 frames per second show off high refresh rate displays better? Would it show off gaming performance better? Would you get a better sense of how this thing really functions if I produced, I mean, not everything, obviously not all of my content go 4K 120. You don't need to see me in 4K 120. But if I wanted to do a gaming showdown or a gaming comparison, and I say, hey, this phone's got a 90 hertz display and this phone has a 120 hertz display, and if you've got a 120 hertz monitor, you can see how these things are functionally different. I wonder if that would translate. That's the big next step. That's what I'm curious about. I like 4K 60. I think 4K 60 shows off the functionality of a product way better than 24 frames per second. Because again, I'm not trying to impress you with my cinematography skills. I'm trying to have a conversation about the gadget I'm reviewing. And I don't really think it matters anymore, like cute panning tracking shot of a rectangle. And now I'm going to do the reverse shot of the other side. And now here's the top of the phone. Oh, wait, I've got to pan it again. And now here's this. And I'm going to pan it. None of that really contributes to the conversation. I'm sorry, it doesn't. It looks nice, but that's not what I'm trying to talk about. I'm trying to have that. So I don't know. It's just fascinating to me. So I desperately want one of these. I have there's no justification for me putting 10 grand on a credit card. That's not, no. Not a thing. But yeah, it just makes me happy that this exists. Oh, I'm sorry. And the reason why I'm so up on Blackmagic, those are the cameras that we use at Newegg. We use Ursa Minis, a combo of Ursa Minis and Sony. I don't know what the Sonys are. I want to say they're A7 IIs. But anyway, so a few of the B-roll shots in my videos have come from those Blackmagic cameras. Like if I'm down at Newegg, when I used to go down to Newegg Studios, we used to shoot at their studio. I'd kind of bring a backpack, and sometimes I'd sneak in a few shots. Like, hey, can I just get a close up on this? Or hey, would you mind if I shot just a few things here and I'm doing this? And it was always really handy to have access to those cameras without having to rent them. So I'm really fond of Blackmagic cameras. Just stunningly good. And then the rest of it, I'm just shooting on my little Panasonics, like it's great. The footage mixes together. I'm horrible at color grading, but it's so easy to work with that footage and get it into my timeline. And especially now that I'm using DaVinci Resolve as my main video editing workstation, it's just so nice. It fits together. It's so pretty. I want one of these so bad. I'm not going to get one. Mr. English Dan, Juan just destroyed my channel, LMAO. So here's the thing. I like to talk a lot of trash. Someone wants to go out and make a cinematic gadget channel. More power to you. And Mr. English Dan, I mean, I've enjoyed your content, but the thing I'm continuously trying to point at is what is it that we're trying to accomplish? And I feel if we're trying to accomplish editorial and review, then a certain tier of conversation should be met. You should have a certain familiarity with the product before you call it a review. You should have more than just a cursory examination of the specs that you can read off of GSM Arena. And I feel for my content, I should be spending more time discussing the usage and showing the specifics of that usage than the amount of time it takes me to go outside, set up a tripod, and nail that beautiful panning shot across my front porch is significantly less important to me than it's not an interesting shot, but it's a close-up on the screen with this one setting that I can show you. And when I show you that in 60 frames per second, that you see how it really functions when I'm using it. Like you see better, like was there lag as I'm going through the multitasking, or when I'm scrolling through the UI, is it functionally any different, 90 hertz versus 120 hertz? That's what I'm trying to accomplish because I care about that stuff. And some of the people that follow me seem to kind of agree. Aditya Anil, the droning dead voice just made it 100 times funnier. That's another thing too, is I get real cranky with, hey guys, what's up? It's your boy. I'm so over tech, but here's what's really exciting. And you can tell I'm excited because, I'm showing you this thing on a video, and isn't that exciting? But I'm also like super over like everything tech because I'm just so chill. And because I'm so chill, we can hang out and it's going to be real lit. I mean, it's going to be lit. It's going to be fresh to death because it's your boy, it's Gadget Guy. And now let's cut to some pretty B-roll. And here are all the things that you can learn about this device if you read along with me on GSM Arena. Like, I just, nah. Matt Tyler, well, there goes Sony money. Oh, if only I were getting those tasty Sony checks. I'm very anxious to see what Sony puts out for this next A7. This camera game is getting really exciting in the prosumer to professional range. So good. Mr. English Dan, I'm considering going over to DaVinci. I cannot recommend DaVinci Resolve enough. I have genuinely enjoyed the transition. So I used to cut a lot in Vegas and in Adobe Premiere. And I kind of wanted to untangle myself from Adobe's Creative Cloud. I was spending money and not really using these cloudy features. it wasn't really much of a benefit. And I was like, I'm just doing a lot of cutting in Vegas. But the recent updates to Vegas just wrecked stability on my AMD Threadripper. I mean, just like it was crashing all the time and not auto backing up. So I'd lose like 2 hours of work and then have to go back and recut. And so a couple months back, I just started tinkering with the free version of DaVinci Resolve. And then I found, like, I think I cut videos for almost a month on the free version, and it was way better than Vegas. And it was like, again, comparable feature sets, phenomenal color grading tools. I'm just now starting to get used to their plugins. How you can manipulate video footage is a little After Effects-y, and I was never very good at After Effects, but I'm starting to learn a little bit more, like, oh, I can do this and I can drop this and I can call that back. It's almost like programming. It's like I can call a function as a feature for video editing. It's so good. And then if you have a decent GPU, I have not found anything that really leverages my graphics card like DaVinci Resolve has. So I loved the free version, and the free version was already a humongous upgrade over Vegas. And then from there, like paying for it, buying the full studio version of it and getting, all of that GPU compute stuff has been insane. I mean, it's dropped my video renders almost 5-fold. My videos render in a fifth the time they used to render, and I'm talking 4K 60 video files that I put up on YouTube. Anyone who even has the barest minimum interest in trying to cut up some video, no, even if you have zero expectations of going professional or starting your own YouTube channel, even if you just want to cut up a few video clips for family and friends, go get the free version of DaVinci Resolve. It is a fully featured video editing platform. All it lacks are a few of the plugins and GPU support, but you can do everything. You want to render 4K 60 video? There is no paywall. There is no nag screen. The only time you run into a roadblock is when you try and use some of their advanced plugins. And a lot of those are GPU based. So because they cut off the GPU, you can't really get there. But even when you're rendering on just the CPU, it is phenomenally stable, beautifully laid out, feature rich, and it doesn't bug you to upgrade. You're going through your workflow and it never splash screens on you. It never nag screens you. It never paywalls you. Well, if you'd want to render this video in 4K, you need to step up to the pro version. No. Everything is accessible. So if you want to learn anything, or if you just want to putz around, or if you just want to, like I said, edit some video for family and friends, go get it. The free version is so good. I can't say enough nice things about it. Mr. English Dan. Oh yeah, reviews should not be after a week of use. You can do a first look and a feature video, but then you should always be trying to follow up a couple weeks after. From Kyle Ruggles, keep it simple. No beauty shots required. Just give us the meat and potatoes and your brain. And I'm kind of trying to accomplish that a bit more focused. Some gadget, brah. From Steve, Q3 Becker, exactly. I think this is a great balance. Josh approaches his videos with way more style than me, but I feel like Josh still takes the time to really form an opinion. And same thing with Issa. Issa, too. She's having a very different conversation about tech than I would, but part of that is a conversation about style. So it makes way more sense for her channel to be more stylish than my channel because she's accomplishing a different kind of conversation. DTNL, DaVinci is crazy good. Cannot recommend it enough considering the fact that you're paying $0. And for Mr. English Dan, it's $2.99. $2.99. It's totally worth having an option on Windows. And I work on a Windows PC. I really want to try and get see if I can make a Linux box that will run that better. And I think that might be a project for one of my Nooks. I've got the one of the Canyon Nooks back there, and I'm going to be getting an NVIDIA 1660 Super. And I want to see, like, if I put that box together and I throw Linux on it, and then I throw Resolve on that, if that is going to be as monster a small form factor video workstation as I think it might be. It's an impressive little box. It's probably more expensive than it should be, considering power, price, performance, all of those different ratios against maybe a smaller form factor AMD machine. But I really like the setup. It's just the 1060 that I had in there was a recycle from Newegg that hadn't been treated very well, so I have to get a new GPU in there. Yeah, so Mr. Inglis, that should fly with Linux and a 1660. I mean, it has to be a beast. I just have to believe. Gary the Fireman, does DaVinci work on Android? Unfortunately, no. No, it does not. From Pat Gostin, saying I should use a Radeon for the Linux box. I was having a harder time finding the price performance that I wanted for an ITX Radeon. And I got a good deal on a 1660, so I just kind of jumped on that. But I agree with you. If I were building an ATX, I would probably be opting for AMD on a mid-range GPU to use with Linux. You're absolutely correct, but it was a combination of things, and punching it into a Nook that kind of made that decision. NVIDIA blobs? I don't know this phrase. What's an NVIDIA blob? Someone clue me in. That's hilarious. No Wayland with NVIDIA blobs either. I mean, you're saying Wayland Yutani? I don't know what that means. But we're kind of closing in on 2 hours here, so I think it's about time that we wrap this all up. Oh, driver binary blob. Okay, sorry. I honestly don't know that I ever would have grokked that. I'm woefully behind on my Linux usage, and it took a pixel book to get me back up to speed, even typing out my sudo commands. Proprietary code you can't look at or edit. I gotcha. Okay. All right. So let's start closing this down. I mean, what have we learned today, kids? We probably shouldn't put blind faith into systems like VPNs. We need to be on the lookout for how corporations manage our private data, and how even when we do our job with good security and two-factor authentication, Twitter can still let us down. We got a lot of cranky ranting on folding phones, because I still feel they're not going to be the future of mobile computing. They'll just be one branch of gadget accessibility that I don't know will really solve the problems that they claim to solve. And I got to lust over a 12K camera that I'm never going to own. But I'm seriously looking at, I might need to rent one of these bad boys just because it's such a monster. I mean, I even want to see, like, what does this footage look like to edit? Because it's gotta be a lot. So, a major thank you. As we're wrapping this up and seeing the folks in the live chat here, those of you who came to play, to drop comments, wonderful conversations as always. Dave Burns too. Some gadget guy branded salt shaker. Oh my gosh. I need to make a Some Gadget Guy salt shaker, so you too can be salty about this native technology. Oh my God, that's hilarious. I'm going to have to steal that from you. And I don't know that I'll give you credit. You sold one already. Oh, coming soon to a merch page near you. A Mega Pickle themed salt shaker. All right, that's the note to go out on. Support your local content creators. Never before has it been more critical to help promote voices in our community, to be active participants. And again, I'm preaching to the choir here because you all are in this live chat, and I know you're savvier than the average bear when it comes to that kind of stuff. But even if it's not on a platform like my subreddit on Glowing Rectangles, we need this conversation to broaden. We need more voices in this space, not fewer channels that are bigger. And that's where we have this chilling effect on the kinds of conversations we have, why only some companies get to be acceptable or worth it. It's because it all just becomes a really ugly downward spiral. And when we open this stuff up, it's so much more fun. Be on the lookout for a ton of content coming from my channel. I'm finally getting, I do need to tease this. Where did they go? Okay. So I started 2020 off with a project that that's completely fallen apart. My passion, my joy, audio. And so I really wanted to make regular content featuring the hashtag 2020 hearing campaign, talking about hearing health, how gadgets and consumer electronics contribute to our hearing. This is something that's very, very important to me. I'm very passionate about this topic. I come from a background in recording and voiceover directing. My ability to hear is basically one of the things that puts food on my family's table and a roof over our heads. So I'm very anxious about these disturbing trends of hearing loss amongst the entire population, but especially in younger people. At the beginning of this year, I was a little snarky about some of the PR headlines coming out. Oh, hearables are going to be the next phase of accessibility tech. Ooh, hearables. What a fancy phrase for consumer grade hearing augmentation hearing aids. But I covered New Hera last year. True wireless earbuds that have microphone modeling on them to help you hear speech when you're in busy environments, and they look like regular true wireless earbuds. Because of the situation and all of the disruptions to manufacturing, two companies basically faced some severe setbacks in getting these products out. I don't have them yet, but I will have them soon. Olive Union makes an earbud that looks like a true wireless earbud, but it's built on the same idea. It's about filtering noise, helping you hear speech. And I just got these in last Friday. These are the New Hera IQ Buds 2. So this is the follow-up to the earbuds that I reviewed last year. We're finally getting our first 2020 hearing gadget reviews. And I'm really excited about this. I've been using these over the weekend, popping them in, listening around the house, running the washer and dryer, going out for a walk around busy traffic. And first impressions are, I'm very impressed. So again, especially for you folks out there that are concerned about your hearing health, and you should be following a channel like LFA Reviews if you enjoy good commentary on true wireless earbuds and headphones. But I want to take this up a notch. I want to start talking a little bit more about hearing health and hearing aids as it pertains to consumer electronics. So be on the lookout. I still have a lot more using to do, but there's going to be some really cool content coming out about how to treat your ears better. I'm glad to be getting some of this back on track. So, and I'm really glad to hear that. Matt Tyler, I've educated a few of my family and friends on the hashtag 2020 hearing this year. There are other videos that I'm trying to produce and get working again. All of the interviews fell apart. It's unfortunate because you start talking to scientists and they're not always the best media personalities. And so social distancing doesn't work so well if you're trying to talk to a researcher who doesn't know how to set up mics and a webcam, right? So I had one interview completely melt down just because it was unusable and I felt terrible. But I'm trying to get back up to speed and hopefully some of that other content because I wanted to talk to engineers. I wanted to talk to researchers, talk to a few more doctors, and get that conversation rolling again. I'm hoping by the end of 2020, we'll have a fuller slate of hashtag 2020 hearing videos. So now we're going to wrap this up. Thanks so much for watching. All of you in the live chat, greatly appreciated. And thank you so much for those of you actively participating and supporting your favorite content creators. You might not always get the kudos you deserve, but know that it is noticed, and it's supremely appreciated when folks see a video get shared on Reddit or retweeted on Twitter or posted on Facebook. This stuff really matters, and it helps us keep making fresh content for y'all to watch. Excuse me. All right, folks, I want you to have an amazing week. I want you to be awesome with your technology this week. I want you to do awesome with your technology this week. And I'll catch you back here for another episode of the Monday Morning Tech Chat Show on the SGGQA podcast channel. Take care out there. Times are still really crazy. So I want to see all these names and faces back next week. And yeah, don't do anything dumb. No unnecessary risks. I'll catch you back. Take care.